It seems the far right, much of it digging in on finding answers and justice as it pertains to sex predator Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, and some people who had decided to let this go came back to it again yesterday. There is no let up now in the drumbeat for more information about that Jeffrey Epstein case, despite, as we just heard, President Trump's repeated efforts to put the issue to rest. The controversy continues to plague the administration, driving a chasm among MAGA supporters. The president spoke to reporters yesterday, questioning why anyone would even care about the deceased convicted sex offender.
I don't understand it, why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't. And the credible information's been given. Don't forget, we went through years of the Mueller witch hunt and all of the different things, the Steele dossier, which was all fake. All that information was fake. But I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think, well, really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information, let them give it. Anything that's credible, I would say, let them have it.
Well, millions of his own supporters disagree. They are some of the loudest voices calling for more transparency, more information about what happened with Epstein. Among them, Charlie Kirk, who was back on the topic last night, posting a list of, quote, action items to get to the bottom of the case. Megyn Kelly doubled down on her criticism of the Department of Justice in a blog post saying, nice try. But she will not be deterred from talking about Epstein, she said. Fox News host Bret Baier opened his show last night with coverage of the story. Podcaster Joe Rogan questioned the administration for its handling of the case.
They've got videotape, and all of a sudden they don't. You know, you have the director of the FBI on this show saying there's no tape. If there was, nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why did they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible? Why did they say that?
Right.
Didn't Pam Bondi say that?
Also calling for more clarity is House Speaker Mike Johnson, who pressed the administration for more visibility on the case.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it. I agree with the sentiment that we need to put it out there. And you know, Pam Bondi, I don't know. When she originally made the statement, I think she was talking about documents, as I understood it, they were on her desk. I don't know that she was specific about a list or whatever, but she needs to come forward and explain that to everybody.
Speaker Johnson joins other Republican members of Congress breaking with President Trump on this issue. Several conservatives in the House also spoke out yesterday.
Whatever they have, and I think Pam Bondi is turning it over to somebody else now, but whatever they have, it needs to be transparent. It needs to come out.
You don't think the Justice Department is transparent?
No, I wouldn't say that. I don't know what they have. I mean, this all just came to a head, and we'll see. But on all this, it should be transparent. The American people need to see what's in there, and that's not hard.
Should there be an investigation or a special counsel investigation?
I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I just find them guilty and hang them publicly. I mean, that's not over the top either. I'm ready. I'm over it. It disgusts me. I'm big on clarity and transparency, and you know, that's a good reason people don't trust government, either party.
But you don't believe what the Justice Department is saying?
I don't know. You know, I don't. I think I don't trust them.
I think moving forward, we need a special counsel. That has got to happen. There has to be a special investigation into this if we aren't going to be provided information. And so this is certainly important, and I want answers, and maybe that takes that special counsel to do so.
All right, so those are all Republicans calling for more information. Despite those calls, though, House Republicans blocked another amendment that would mandate the release of the Justice Department files on Jeffrey Epstein. Yesterday, Democrats tried to force a vote on a measure that would have required the DOJ to publish the files within 30 days. This comes just one day after Republicans on the House Rules Committee voted against attaching a similar Epstein amendment to a cryptocurrency and defense funding bill. Democrats have promised future votes on the measure, while Republicans are dismissing the move, calling it a partisan ploy. Republican Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee, who you just heard from a second ago, telling Axios, quote, "It's just politics. It's not about protecting little children." And that ticks me off. So, David French, you're writing about this morning. You've been writing about it quite a bit. I think it's worth taking a step back to the layman who follows the news but does not understand why conservatives, some conservatives, millions of conservatives, why our Department of Justice, why the White House, why the FBI right now is consumed about a case of a convicted sex offender who killed himself in jail 6 years ago. Why is this so resonant, and why won't it go away?
Yeah, I'm glad we're taking a step back here to help people understand, because I don't think the average person in the United States understands the extent to which MAGA is motivated by, and their support for Trump is motivated by, this burning sense of conviction that America is led by a ruling class of pedophiles, that the top of American government, the top of American industry is populated by pedophiles. And so if you have a belief, now just think this through for a moment. If you have a burning conviction, if you have a belief that the top layer of American government is populated by pedophiles, then your motivation to, quote, drain the swamp is going to be rooted in furious anger, just furious anger. And this has been stoked, by the way, by the Trump administration and by figures within MAGA for years. So if you're going to go back and you're going to look at rhetoric before the 2024 election, you're going to have a Kash Patel, you're going to have a Dan Bongino, you're going to have, to some extent, even Trump himself talking about, we got to get this out there and get this out there. You're going to have in Christian circles, in extreme Christian circles, you're going to have prophecies about how Trump is the man who is supposed to expose all of this, to root all of this out. So what we're talking about here is actually a disruption for the motivating force for MAGA to begin with for an awful lot of people. So that's why when I saw all of a sudden this DOJ memorandum, an unsigned memorandum, by the way, a very cowardly way to do this, comes out and basically refutes every key element of the bigger Epstein conspiracy, that says there's no list. That was a shock to people because Bondi had implied that the list was on her desk, that there's no blackmail, another shock to people who believed that blackmail was one of the ways that the pedophile cabal kept everyone in line, and, talked about that he had in fact killed himself. And then we have this just staggering weirdness, I guess is a good way to say it, of releasing videos that are supposed to allegedly disprove conspiracies, but yet have missing minutes within them. And there's evidence that comes from Wired magazine, not from some obscure right-wing conspiracy site, that, hey, this video may have been spliced together, may have been edited in some way. And all of a sudden, all of these alarm bells start going off around MAGA in a way they've not gone off around, say, cuts to foreign aid, or unconstitutional attacks on free speech, or exploding federal deficits, or inconsistent policies towards Ukraine. All of that, they'll stick with him easily. But this is something else entirely, because it's foundational to the purpose of, I'm not going to say the whole movement, but part of the movement. And that's why you have seen some people who otherwise would be absolute peak Trump sycophants breaking with Trump, like your Benny Johnsons of the world, your Charlie Kirks of the world. I would never call Joe Rogan a Trump sycophant, but like raising his voice here. Megyn Kelly, these are people with immense followings. Now, of course, they're not as influential as Trump. No one is in MAGA, but they have immense followings. And then you're seeing rank and file rebellion. When Trump posted his screed bizarrely blaming the Epstein files on Obama and others, this was one of the first times you saw the user base of Truth Social. This is the core of MAGA, the beating heart of MAGA, turning on Trump. So he actually does have a real problem here. When you see even a Mike Johnson saying something, that means he's hearing from constituents. And for years, we've never seen any daylight between Trump and MAGA. Maybe one brief incident of booing when he brought up the vaccine at a rally some time ago. But this is the first real breach we've seen. And when you've been around MAGA, you know why, because this is foundational. This is why many of them supported him in the first place, which is ironic considering his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. But this is why many of them supported him in the first place. This is foundational to the reasons for supporting him. And all of a sudden, he's comparing it to the so-called Russia hoax. He's putting them in the category of the Democrats and Trump dissenting Republicans who are very keen on investigating ties to Russia. This is a wild moment. I knew it would be a problem when I saw that memo. I knew it would be a problem for him. I did not see how much of a problem it would be and how hard it would be for him to tamp it down.
Yeah, and when you've invested, as you say, years and years and years of your life, when this is foundational to who you are, you're not going to walk away from it after an unsigned memo from the DOJ and the FBI. John, very fascinating, frankly, to watch Donald Trump, the President of the United States, grapple with this. A guy who was an acquaintance of Jeffrey Epstein, who once called him a terrific guy, who acknowledged jokingly his affinity for very young women. Yep. Trump talking about Jeffrey Epstein, frankly, just looks uncomfortable when we see him there yesterday talking about this.
And clearly flailing. I mean, yesterday on the tarmac there at Joint Base Andrews, talked about how boring the story is. He wouldn't understand why anyone would talk about it. Mind you, it was just 2 days prior that, as David mentioned, Donald Trump's defense was that it was a conspiracy created by Barack Obama. I don't know, let's take that at face value. That's not boring if you're saying the former president of the United States created this. And it just shows that they have not landed on a good defense. As you noted, this sort of right from the beginning always is a bit of an uncomfortable fit as a MAGA conspiracy, simply because Trump did have at least some ties to Epstein. There's a bunch of photographs of them together. Now, Trump himself has not pushed this conspiracy nearly as hard as others in his orbit in recent years, but it has become a core piece of the MAGA movement. And what's so interesting is we sat on the show yesterday. It looked like the firestorm was petering out. We talked about how Charlie Kirk had said, well, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. And others in the right-wing movement seemingly were getting in line, and President Trump said, let's drop it, and they seemed like they were willing to. That changed again yesterday. Kirk did devote his show to this. Fox News, which had largely ignored it for 24 hours, they talked about it. As noted, Megyn Kelly, Benny Johnson, they all jumped back on board, and most significantly to me anyway, was Speaker Mike Johnson, who has shown no appetite at all to defy Trump at this point during his tenure, has been painted by others on the Hill as being almost afraid of his own shadow in terms of not wanting to defy the White House. But in this one yesterday, Mika, he did, calling for a full release of these, whatever files they may be, which stands in exact contrast of what the Oval Office wants.